2 weeks had passed since Vex's ship disappeared from the sky. The people of the town had started to relax, thinking maybe the hunter had given up and moved on. The farms were growing better than ever, and everyone was working together like a big family, but Zara never stopped looking worried. "He will come back," she told Jake every day. "Vex never gives up. He is patient. He waits and watches." Jake tried to comfort her, but deep down he knew she was right. Someone like Vex wouldn't just leave empty-handed. He was probably planning something. On a quiet Tuesday morning, Jake's fears came true. He was in his workshop fixing a tractor. Engine when Danny came running in, his face pale with fear. "Jake," Danny shouted. "He's back. And this time he's not staying in the sky." Jake dropped his tools and ran outside. In the distance, he could see a large silver ship landing in the field behind Pete's farm. It was bigger than Jake had imagined. About the size of a school bus, with strange blue lights along its sides. "Where's Zara?" Jake asked. "In the house with Betty and Mary," Danny said. "They're keeping Kira quiet." Jake could hear the fear in his friend's voice. This was really happening. The alien hunter had come to their town, and now they would have to face him. The ship's door opened with a loud hissing sound. A figure stepped out, and Jake felt his blood turn cold. Vex was tall, much taller than any human, with dark gray skin and bright red eyes. He wore black armor that seemed to glow with its own light. Behind him came 6 robot-like creatures, each one carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Vex looked around the town with those terrible red eyes. When he spoke, his voice was loud enough for everyone to hear, even from far away. "People of this world," Vex said in perfect English. "I am Vex, hunter of the Galactic Empire. You are hiding stolen property that belongs to me. Give me the female called Zara and her offspring, and I will leave your world in peace." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. Stolen property? Zara and Kira were people, not things to be owned. All around town, people were coming out of their houses and businesses. Jake could see Pete running across his field. Carol Thompson was driving up in her police car, with Tom Wilson and Linda Foster following behind her. Even old Mr. Martinez was walking down the street, carrying his old hunting rifle. "If you do not give them to me," Vex continued, "I will take them by force. And I will punish anyone who tries to stop me." Carol parked her car and got out. She walked toward Vex, her hand resting on her gun. Jake knew that her small pistol would be useless against a hunter's advanced weapons, but Carol walked forward anyway. "This is Sheriff Carol Thompson," she called out. "You are not welcome here. Leave now, and there won't be any trouble." Vex laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Little human, your weapons cannot hurt me. My scanners show that the fugitives are in that building." He pointed directly at Jake's house. "I will take them now." "No," Jake said, stepping forward. "You won't." More people were gathering around. Pete arrived with several other farmers. Mary came running from Jake's house, leaving Betty to watch over Zara and Kira. Soon, almost the whole town was standing between Vex and Jake's house. "You would fight for aliens?" Vex asked, sounding surprised. "They are not your species. Why do you care what happens to them?" "Because they're our friends," Jake said. "Because Zara helped our farms grow. Because Kira is just a baby who never hurt anyone, and because what you're doing is wrong." Vex's red eyes glowed brighter. "Wrong? I am a legal hunter. They are escaped slaves. This is business." "Not in our town," Carol said. "Here, we protect our own." Vex looked around at all the humans standing against him. "You would all die for these aliens?" "If we have to," Pete said, and Jake was surprised to hear the big farmer sound so determined. "Yeah," said Linda Foster. "We're not afraid of you." One by one, other voices joined in. Tom Wilson, Mr. Martinez, Mary, Danny, and dozens of other townspeople all said they would stand and fight. Jake felt proud and scared at the same time. These people were willing to risk everything for what was right. Vex raised his hand, and his robot soldiers moved forward. "Then you will all die." The battle started fast and fierce. Vex's robots began shooting energy beams that cut through the air like lightning, but the townspeople were ready. Danny had taught some of them how to use the metal sheets as shields. They spread out and took cover behind cars, buildings, and farm equipment. Carol and the other people with guns started shooting at the robots. Their bullets bounced off the metal bodies, but they kept the robots busy. Pete drove his big tractor straight at one of the robots, knocking it down. Jake ran toward his workshop, where he had hidden some of the tools Danny had made. He grabbed what looked like a metal box with wires coming out of it. "What's that?" Mary asked as she ran beside him. "Danny made it from parts of Zara's crashed ship," Jake said. "He thinks it might work against their electronics." Jake turned on the device. It made a high-pitched whining sound, and suddenly 2 of the robots stopped moving. Their lights went out, and they fell over like broken toys. "It works!" Danny shouted from behind a car. "But it won't last long." Vex saw his robots falling and became angry. He pointed his own weapon at Jake's house. "If I cannot have them alive, I will take them dead." But before Vex could fire, something amazing happened. The ground around his feet began to glow with green light. Thick vines burst up from the earth and wrapped around his legs. Flowers bloomed on the vines, but these flowers had sharp thorns. That cut through Vex's armor. Jake looked toward his house and saw Zara standing in the doorway. Her whole body was glowing brighter than he had ever seen it. She was using her power to control the plants, making them fight against the hunter. "You hurt my friends," Zara said, her musical voice carrying across the battlefield. "You threaten my baby. Now I will stop you." More plants grew up around Vex and his remaining robots. Trees dropped heavy branches on them. Grass became as sharp as knives under their feet. The very earth seemed to be fighting against them, but Vex was strong. He broke free from the vines and raised his weapon again. This time he aimed it at Zara herself. "You cannot hide anymore," he snarled. "Come with me, or I will kill everyone in this pathetic town." That's when baby Kira did something no one expected. The little alien baby, who had been quiet and peaceful for weeks, suddenly began to glow. But her light was different from her mother's. It was white and bright, like a small star. The light grew brighter and brighter until no one could look directly at it. Jake felt a strange tingling in the air, like the feeling before a thunderstorm. Then there was a sound like a giant bell, ringing, and a wave of energy swept across the town. When the light faded, Vex and his robots were frozen in place like statues. They could not move, could not speak, could not even blink. Zara ran to her baby and picked her up. "Kira," she said with wonder in her voice, "you have the old power, the power to stop time." Jake and the others slowly came out from their hiding places. The battle was over. Somehow, a baby who was barely a month old had defeated a dangerous alien hunter. "What do we do with them now?" Carol asked, looking at the frozen hunter and his robots. "We send them away," Zara said. "Far away, where they cannot hurt anyone." Using her power and some of Jake's tools, Zara managed to get Vex and his robots back into their ship. She programmed it to fly far away from Earth, to a place where they would be found by authorities who could deal with hunters like Vex as the ship disappeared into the sky. The people of the town gathered around Jake's house. They had won their first battle, but they all knew this was just the beginning. "More will come," Zara said, holding Kira close. "Some good, some bad. But now Earth is known to the galaxy. Your world will never be the same." Jake looked around at his friends and neighbors. They had all changed during this fight. They were no longer just farmers and shop owners. They were protectors of something bigger than themselves. "Then we'll be ready," Jake said. "All of us together." And as the sun set over their small town, Jake knew that whatever came next, they would face it as one family, human and alien together. The humming sound grew louder throughout the night, but it never came directly overhead. Jake, Zara, Betty and Danny stayed hidden in the metal-covered workshop, taking turns watching through a small gap in the wall. The dark shape in the sky moved back and forth, searching, but it seemed unable to find exactly what it was looking for. By morning, the sound had faded into the distance. Danny looked through his binoculars and saw that the ship was moving away toward the east. "I think it worked," Danny said quietly. "The metal shielding is blocking his scanners." Zara let out a long breath she had been holding. "He will come back," she said. "Vex does not give up easily. But maybe we have time now." Jake looked at his friends. They had spent the whole night cramped in the workshop, and everyone looked tired, but they had done it. They had hidden Zara and Kira from the hunter. "We need to tell people," Jake said. "We can't do this alone," Betty nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. There are good people in town who would help if they knew what was happening. But how do we explain this?" Danny asked. "How do we tell people that aliens are real and that we're hiding them from space bounty hunters?" Jake thought about this. His town was small, only about 200 people. Most of them had known each other for years. They were farmers, shop owners, and working people who helped each other when times were hard. "We start with the people we trust the most," Jake said. "People who know us and will listen." Over the next few days, they carefully began to tell others. Jake started with Mary Johnson, the town doctor. Mary had delivered half the babies in town and had patched up everyone from farmers hurt by farm equipment to kids who fell off their bikes. When Jake brought Mary to meet Zara, the doctor was shocked at first, but when she saw baby Kira, her medical training took over. She examined both mother and child with gentle hands and a calm voice. "Their hearts beat faster than ours," Mary told Jake after the examination, "and their body temperature is lower. But they seem healthy. The baby is growing well. Will you help us?" Jake asked. Mary looked at Zara, who was watching her with those large silver eyes. "Of course I will," Mary said. "A mother and child in need is a mother and child in need, no matter where they come from." Next, they told Pete Davis, who owned the largest farm in the area. Pete was a big man with rough hands and a kind heart. He had been struggling with his crops because of the drought that had hit the area for the past 2 years. Pete's reaction was different from Mary's. When he saw Zara, he just stood there with his mouth open for a long time. Then he started asking questions. "Where do you come from?" he asked Zara. "Far away," Zara said, her English getting better every day. "From a planet around a dying star." "What do your people eat?" Pete asked. "Plants," Zara said. "Fruits and vegetables. We help plants grow." Pete's eyes lit up. "You help plants grow? How?" Zara looked at Jake, who nodded. She held out her hand, and her fingers began to glow with that soft green light. Pete had brought a small plant from his truck, a tomato plant that was wilting from the drought. Zara touched it gently with her glowing fingers. The plant immediately began to change. Its leaves became greener and fuller. Small flowers appeared on its branches. Within minutes, the dying plant looked healthy and strong. Pete stared at the plant, then at Zara. "Can you do that to other plants?" "Yes," Zara said. "It is what my people do. We make things grow." Pete looked at Jake. "My crops are dying because of the drought. If she can help them—" "She wants to help," Jake said. "She's grateful for what we're doing for her and Kira." That afternoon, Pete took Zara to his farm. Jake and Danny went with them, staying alert for any sign of the hunter's return. Pete's cornfields were brown and dry, the plants struggling to survive in the harsh conditions. Zara walked into the field and knelt down. She put her hands on the ground, and the green light flowed from her fingers into the soil. Slowly, the plants around her began to change. The brown leaves turned green. The stalks grew taller and stronger. Ears of corn appeared where there had been none before. "This is amazing," Pete said, watching in wonder. "How far can you do this?" "I can do much," Zara said, "but it makes me tired, and I need to eat many fruits to make the power strong." Pete nodded eagerly. I'll get you all the fruit you need. Can you teach me how to take care of the plants after you help them? Yes, Zara said. I can teach you. Word spread quietly through the town. People came to see the miracle in Pete's fields. At first, many of them were scared when they saw Zara, but when they saw how gentle she was with baby Kira and how she was helping their community, their fear turned to curiosity, then to acceptance. Carol Thompson, the town sheriff, was one of the last to be told. Jake was nervous about telling her because she represented the law, and he wasn't sure how she would react to harboring illegal aliens, even if they were from Space Dock, but Carol surprised him. She listened to the whole story without interrupting, then asked to meet Zara herself. I've been sheriff here for 15 years, Carol said after meeting Zara and Kira. I've seen a lot of strange things, but nothing like this. But I can tell. Good people from bad people, and you're good people. What about the government? Jake asked. What if they find out? Carol was quiet for a moment. The government is made up of people like us, she said. Some good, some bad. But right now, this is our town, and these are our people. We take care of our own. As the days passed, more people joined their group. Tom Wilson, who ran the hardware store, brought supplies to strengthen their defenses. Linda Foster, who taught at the elementary school, helped Zara learn to read English. Even old Mr. Martinez, who usually kept to himself, brought vegetables from his garden for Zara and Kira. The town began to change in other ways too. With Zara's help, the farm started producing more food than they had in years. The drought was still happening, but somehow the plants she touched were able to survive and thrive. People who had been struggling to make ends meet suddenly had crops to sell. But it wasn't just about the farming. The town felt different. People were working together in a way they hadn't before. They had a common purpose, protecting Zara and Kira, and helping their community grow stronger. Jake often found himself amazed by what was happening. A week ago, he had been a lonely mechanic living by himself. Now he was part of something bigger, something important. He was helping to build a bridge between two very different worlds. One evening, as Jake sat in his living room watching Zara teach Kira to make flowers glow with her touch, Betty came over with news. I've been talking to my sister in the next county, Betty said. She says there are strange lights in the sky over there too. And there are rumors about people finding crashed ships in the desert. Jake felt his heart skip. More aliens? Maybe, Betty said. Or maybe it's related to Zara's hunter. Either way, I think we need to be ready for anything. Zara looked up from playing with Kira. Others come, she said. Some good, some bad. This is only the beginning. Jake looked around at his friends, at the people who had become like family. To him, they had built something special here, something worth protecting. And he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Outside, the stars were shining brightly in the clear Montana sky. Somewhere among those stars, other beings were traveling, looking for new homes, new chances, new hope. And down on Earth, in a small town that most people had never heard of, humans and aliens were proving that different species could live together, help each other, and create something beautiful. The real test was still coming. But for now, they were ready. 3 days had passed since Betty's first visit to Jake's house. Each day, Zara grew stronger and spoke more English words. She was a quick learner, and Jake was amazed by how fast she picked up new things. Baby Kira was also getting better, eating more and crying less. But on the 4th morning, everything changed. Jake woke up to the sound of Zara screaming. He ran downstairs and found her standing by the window, holding Kira tightly against her chest. Her skin was glowing much brighter than usual, and her silver eyes were wide with terror. Zara, what's wrong? Jake asked. Rushing to her side, Zara pointed at the sky with a shaking finger. Hunter, she said, her voice filled with fear. Hunter comes. Jake looked out the window but saw nothing except the clear blue morning sky. I don't see anything, he said. What hunter? Zara grabbed his arm with her free hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Bad man," she said, struggling with the English words. "He hunts me. He hunts Kira. He wants to take us." Jake felt his heart start to race. "Someone is chasing you." Zara nodded frantically. "From space, from my home, he follows me here." Jake looked out the window again, this time searching the sky more carefully. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then, high above the clouds, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. There was a small, dark shape moving across the sky. It was too high to see clearly, but it was definitely not a bird or an airplane. "Is that him?" Jake asked, pointing. Zara looked where he was pointing and made a sound like a wounded animal. "Yes," she whispered. "Vex. His name is Vex. What does he want?" Jake asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "He takes people like me," Zara said, her voice getting stronger as she found the right words. "He sells them. Makes them slaves. My people, we run from our dying world. But hunters like Vex, they catch us. They make money from our pain." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "He's a slave trader?" "Yes," Zara said. "And worse, he hurts people. He kills people. He does not care about babies or mothers or families. He only cares about money." Jake looked at baby Kira, who was looking up at her mother with those large silver eyes. The thought of someone hurting this innocent child made him furious. "We need to hide you," Jake said. "Is there somewhere he can't find you?" Zara shook her head. "He has machines. They can find me anywhere. They smell my my life force, like a dog smells food." "What about underground?" Jake asked. "I have a basement. And there's my workshop. It's got thick walls." Zara's eyes lit up with a small hope. "Maybe, if we can block his machine somehow." Jake thought about his workshop behind the house. It was where he fixed cars and stored his tools. The walls were thick concrete, and he had a lot of metal stored there. Maybe that would help. "Come on," he said. "Let's go look." They went out to Jake's workshop. It was a large building with concrete walls and a metal roof. Inside, there were car parts, tools, and sheets of metal that Jake used for repairs. Zara walked around the building, her skin glowing softly as she seemed to sense something. "This is better," she said. "The metal, it makes noise in his machines, but not enough." "What if we brought more metal?" Jake asked. "I know where to get more. Maybe," Zara said. "But he is smart. He will find ways." Jake was about to answer when they heard a car coming up the driveway. Jake looked out and saw Betty's old pickup truck. But there was another car behind it, one Jake didn't recognize. "Who's that?" Zara asked, moving closer to Jake. "I don't know," Jake said, "but Betty brought someone." They watched as Betty got out of her truck, followed by a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. Jake had seen him before but couldn't remember where. Betty knocked on the workshop door. "Jake? Are you in there?" Jake opened the door carefully. "Hi, Betty. Who's your friend?" "This is Danny Rodriguez," Betty said. "He used to work for the military. He knows about communications and electronics. I thought he might be able to help." Danny stepped forward and held out his hand. "Betty told me about your situation," he said quietly. "I know it sounds crazy, but I believe her. I've seen some strange things in my time with the military." Jake shook Danny's hand. "Nice to meet you, but we might have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Danny asked. Jake looked at Zara, who nodded. "Show them," she said. Jake pointed to the sky. "There's someone up there hunting Zara and her baby. Some kind of alien bounty hunter." Danny looked up at the sky and squinted. After a moment, he pulled out a small pair of binoculars from his jacket. He looked through them for a long time, then lowered them slowly. "I see it," he said. "That's definitely not one of ours. It's too high for a regular aircraft, and it's moving in a pattern like it's searching for something. What do we do?" Betty asked. Danny looked at Jake's workshop. "This building might work as a hiding place, but we need to make it better. We need to block whatever signal he's using to track them. Zara said he uses machines to smell her life force, Jake said. Danny nodded. Some kind of bioscanner, probably. We need to create a Faraday cage around this building. That means covering it with metal mesh or sheets to block electronic signals. I have lots of metal, Jake said. Will that work? It might, Danny said. But we need to move fast. And we need to be smart about it. Over the next few hours, Jake, Danny, and Betty worked to turn Jake's workshop into a hiding place. They covered the walls with sheets of metal, being careful to make sure there were no gaps. Danny used his knowledge of electronics to create a shield that would hopefully block the hunter's scanners. Zara helped by using her glowing touch to weld the metal sheets together. Jake was amazed by her ability. She could make metal bend and join just by touching it with her glowing fingers. Your people are amazing, Jake said as he watched her work. We were builders, Zara said sadly. We made beautiful things. Cities that floated in the air, gardens that grew in space. But then our sun started to die, and we had to leave everything behind. What happened to the rest of your people? Betty asked. Some escaped, Zara said. Some died. Some were caught by hunters like Vex. I do not know how many are left. As they worked, Danny kept watching the sky through his binoculars. It's getting closer, he said. And I think it's scanning in a grid pattern. It's looking for something specific. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maybe a few hours, Danny said. Maybe less. They worked faster. Jake had never seen people work together like this. Betty brought food and water. Danny directed the construction of the electronic shield. Zara used her powers to strengthen their work. And Jake used his mechanical skills to put everything together. As the sun began to set, they finished their work. The workshop was now covered in metal and surrounded by Danny's electronic devices. Inside, they had set up a small living space with blankets, food, and water. This is the best we can do, Danny said. Now we wait and see if it works. Zara looked around at what they had built. You did this for me, she said, her voice full of emotion. You did this for Kira, but why? You do not know us. Jake looked at her, then at baby Kira sleeping in her mother's arms. Because it's the right thing to do, he said. Because no one should be hunted like an animal. Because every mother should be able to protect her child. Zara's eyes filled with tears. Your people, they are good people. Some of us try to be, Jake said. Outside, the dark shape in the sky was getting closer. Soon, they would find out if their plan would work. But for now, they were together, and they were ready to fight for what was right. Danny looked through his binoculars one more time. He's coming, he said. Everyone get inside and stay quiet. They all moved into the protected workshop. In the distance, they could hear a strange humming sound getting closer. The hunt was about to begin. Jake woke up early the next morning to the sound of soft singing. For a moment, he forgot about the strange events of the night before and thought maybe he had left the radio on. But as he sat up in bed, the memories came flooding back. The alien woman and her baby were still in his living room. He got dressed quickly and walked downstairs. The woman was sitting up on the couch, holding her baby and singing to it in that beautiful musical language. In the morning light streaming through his windows, she looked even more otherworldly than she had the night before. Her skin seemed to glow with a soft blue light, and her silver hair caught the sunlight like water. When she saw Jake, she stopped singing and watched him carefully. Her large silver eyes followed his every movement, and Jake could see she was still afraid, but also curious. Good morning, Jake said gently. He pointed to himself and said slowly, Jake, my name is Jake. The woman tilted her head, and Jake noticed that her pointed ears moved slightly, like a cat's. She said something in her musical language, then pointed to herself and made a sound that was like wind through leaves. It was beautiful, but Jake had no idea how to repeat it. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't understand. Can you say it again?" The woman tried again, speaking more slowly. This time, Jake thought he heard something like Zara in the mix of musical sounds. He pointed to her and said, "Zara." Her eyes lit up, and she nodded. Then she pointed to her baby and said another word that sounded like Kira. "Zara and Kira," Jake repeated, and the woman smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile, and it was like watching the sun come out from behind clouds. Jake went to his kitchen and looked through his refrigerator. He had no idea what aliens ate, but he figured he should start with something simple. He brought back a glass of water and a piece of bread. Setting them on the coffee table in front of Zara. Zara looked at the food with interest. She picked up the glass of water and sniffed it carefully. Then she took a small sip, and her eyes went wide. She drank the whole glass quickly, as if she had been very thirsty. The bread was different. She picked it up and examined it closely, turning it over in her long, delicate fingers. She took a tiny bite and made a face. It was clear she did not like it. "Okay," Jake said, "no bread. Let me try something else." He went back to the kitchen and returned with an apple. Zara's reaction was completely different. As soon as she saw the apple, her skin began to glow brighter. She took it from Jake's hands and bit into it eagerly. The juice ran down her chin, and she made happy sounds as she ate. "Fruit," Jake said, pointing to the apple. "You like fruit?" Zara nodded and repeated the word fruit in her musical voice. It sounded like a song when she said it. Jake spent the rest of the morning trying to communicate with Zara. He brought her different foods to try, and she showed him what she liked and what she did not like. She loved all kinds of fruit, but she would not eat meat or bread. She seemed to especially enjoy water, drinking glass after glass as if she had not had any in days. Baby Kira was different. When Jake offered her some mashed apple, she would not eat it. She just cried that musical cry and looked at her mother. Zara tried to explain something to Jake, but he could not understand. Then Zara did something that amazed him. She held out her hand, and her fingers began to glow with a soft green light. She touched the apple slices Jake had given her, and they began to change. They became softer and seemed to glow with the same green light. When she fed these glowing pieces to Kira, the baby ate them happily. "Wow," Jake said. "How did you do that?" Zara looked at him and seemed to realize that humans could not do what she had just done. She looked sad for a moment, then tried to explain. She pointed to the apple, then to her hands, then to the baby. She made gestures that looked like growing plants. "You can make food better for the baby," Jake said. "You can change it somehow." Zara nodded. She seemed pleased that he was trying to understand. As the day went on, Jake learned more about his strange guest. Zara was clearly intelligent. She watched everything he did with great interest, and she learned English words quickly. By afternoon, she could say water, fruit, baby, and thank you. But Jake was worried. Zara was still very weak, and she needed more help than he could give her. He thought about calling his neighbor Betty Murphy, who lived about a mile down the road. Betty had been a nurse before she retired, and she might know what to do. But how could he explain this to Betty? How could he tell her that he had aliens living in his house? Around 3 o'clock, Jake made his decision. He called Betty and asked her to come over, saying he had a medical emergency but could not explain over the phone. Betty, who had known Jake since he was a child, said she would be right over. When Betty arrived, Jake met her at the door. She was a short, round woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She carried a small medical bag, as Jake had hoped she would. "What's wrong, Jake?" she asked. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Jake said. "But I need you to promise me something. What I'm about to show you is going to be very strange, and I need you to promise that you won't panic or call the police." Betty looked at him with concern. "Jake, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Just promise me," Jake said. "Please." Betty nodded slowly. "I promise." Jake led her into the living room. Zara was sitting on the couch, feeding Kira. When she saw Betty, she tensed up and held her baby closer. Betty stopped walking and stared. Her mouth fell open and she grabbed Jake's arm. "Jake," she whispered, "what is that?" "Her name is Zara," Jake said calmly. "And that's her baby, Kira. They're not from here." Betty continued to stare. She looked at Zara's glowing skin, her pointed ears, her silver hair. She looked at the baby with its large silver eyes. "Are they ... are they aliens?" Betty asked in a voice so quiet Jake could barely hear her. "I think so," Jake said. "I found them on my doorstep last night during the storm. They were almost frozen to death." Betty stood very still for a long moment. Then slowly, she walked closer to the couch. Zara watched her nervously, but she did not move away. "Hello," Betty said softly. "I'm Betty. I'm a friend of Jake's." Zara looked at Jake, then back at Betty. "Hello," she said in her musical voice. "I am Zara." Betty's eyes filled with tears. "She can talk. She's very smart," Jake said. "She's been learning English all day." Betty sat down carefully in the chair across from the couch. "Are you hurt?" she asked Zara. "Do you need help?" Zara seemed to understand that Betty was trying to help. She nodded and pointed to herself, then to Kira. "Help," she said. "Please help." Betty looked at Jake. "I've been a nurse for 30 years, she said. "I've never seen anything like this. But if they need help, we'll help them." Jake felt a wave of relief. He had been worried that Betty would be too frightened or that she would want to call the government. But Betty was like him. When she saw someone in need, she wanted to help. "What do we do?" Jake asked Betty open her medical bag. "First, let's see if I can figure out how to check their health. Then we'll take it one step at a time." Zara watched as Betty approached with her stethoscope. She seemed to understand that Betty was trying to help. When Betty pointed to the stethoscope and then to her chest, Zara nodded and allowed Betty to listen to her heart. "It's beating much faster than a human heart," Betty said. "But it sounds strong." As Betty continued her examination, Jake realized that this was just the beginning. Zara and Kira would need more than just food and shelter. They would need protection and help and possibly a place to hide. But looking at Betty calmly working with the alien mother and baby, Jake felt hope. Maybe, with the right people helping, they could make this work. Outside, the storm had stopped, but Jake knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The wind howled across the empty fields of Montana, carrying with it the promise of another harsh winter storm. Jake Collins pulled his old truck into the driveway of his small house, the headlights cutting through the darkness like knives. Snow had been falling for 3 hours now, and the weather report said it would get worse before it got better. Jake turned off the engine and sat in the quiet cab for a moment. He was tired from his long day at the auto shop in town, fixing broken cars and dealing with customers who always seemed to be in a hurry. At 34, he lived alone in the house his grandfather had built, surrounded by nothing but farmland and the occasional neighbor miles away. Most people would call it lonely, but Jake liked the peace and quiet. He grabbed his lunchbox and tools from the passenger seat and stepped out into the cold. The snow crunched under his boots as he walked toward the front door, his breath forming. White clouds in the freezing air. The porch light cast a warm yellow glow across the wooden steps, and Jake was looking forward to a hot meal and maybe some television before bed. But as he reached for his keys, something caught his eye. There was a shape on his doorstep, dark against the white snow. At first, he thought it might be a bag of groceries that a neighbor had left, or maybe something that had blown over from the road. But as he got closer, his heart began to race. It was not a bag. It was a person. Jake dropped his lunchbox and rushed forward. A woman was lying on his doorstep, curled up in a ball with something clutched tightly in her arms. Her clothes were strange, made of what looked like silver fabric that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Her skin was pale, almost white, and when Jake knelt down beside her, he could see that she was breathing, but just barely. "Hey," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay?" The woman did not respond. Jake reached out carefully and touched her shoulder. Her skin was cold, much colder than it should have been even in the snow. But what shocked him most was that her skin seemed to have a faint glow to it, like moonlight on water. That was when he noticed her face. She was beautiful, but in a way that was completely unlike any human he had ever seen. Her features were delicate and sharp, with high cheekbones and a narrow nose. Her eyes were closed, but he could see that they were large and set wide apart. Her hair was long and silver, almost the same color as her strange clothes, but it was. Her ears that made Jake realize this was no ordinary woman. They were pointed, like something from a fairy tale, and they seemed to twitch slightly as she breathed. Jake's mind raced. This was impossible. People did not look like this. People did not have glowing skin and pointed ears. But here she was, lying on his doorstep in the middle of a snowstorm, and she was clearly in trouble. He looked more closely at what she was holding in her arms. It was wrapped in the same silver fabric as her clothes, but it was small, about the size of a baby. Jake's heart jumped as he realized what it was. "Oh my God," he whispered. The bundle moved slightly, and Jake heard a soft sound, almost like a kitten mewing. Whatever was inside was alive, and it was small and helpless. Jake did not hesitate. He scooped up the woman as gently as he could, surprised by how light she was. She felt almost weightless in his arms, and her skin had a strange texture, smooth, but somehow different from human skin. He carried her quickly to his front door, fumbling with his keys while trying not to drop her or the bundle she held. The warm air inside his house hit him like a wall as he pushed through the door. He carried the woman to his living room and laid her carefully on the couch. The bundle in her arms was still moving, and Jake could hear soft sounds coming from it. He turned on the lamp beside the couch and got his first good look at his unexpected guests. The woman was even more strange and beautiful in the light. Her skin was not just pale, it was almost translucent, with a soft blue glow underneath. Her silver hair spread across his brown couch like water, and he could see that her pointed ears were not the only thing that made her different from humans. Her hands were longer and more delicate than human hands, with fingers that seemed to, and in small claws rather than fingernails. Her clothes were made of a material he had never seen before, something that looked like metal but moved like cloth. But it was the bundle in her arms that really captured his attention. The fabric had fallen away slightly, and Jake could see a small face inside. It was a baby, but like its mother, it was not human. The baby's skin had the same pale, glowing quality, and its eyes, which were open and looking around, were large and bright silver. The baby made the soft mewing sound again, and Jake felt his heart melt. Whatever these beings were, wherever they had come from, this was a mother and her child, and they were in trouble. Jake knelt beside the couch and gently touched the woman's forehead. She was still very cold, and her breathing was shallow and weak. He had no idea what to do. Should he call 911? Should he call the police? How could he explain this to anyone? The baby began to cry, a sound unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was musical, like wind chimes, but it was clearly the cry of a hungry, frightened infant. The woman's eyes suddenly opened, and Jake found himself looking into the most beautiful and alien eyes he had ever seen. They were silver, like her hair, but they seemed to shift and change color as she looked at him. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, human and alien, both trying to understand what was happening. The woman tried to sit up, but she was too weak. She fell back against the couch cushions, but she never let go of her baby. She said something in a language Jake had never heard before. It sounded like music, with notes that rose and fell like a song. Her voice was beautiful, but he could hear the desperation in it. Jake held up his hands, trying to show her that he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe. I want to help you." The woman looked at him with those strange silver eyes, and Jake could see intelligence there, and fear, and something else. Hope, maybe. She said something else in her musical language, and this time Jake thought he heard a question in her voice. "I don't understand," he said, "but I can see you're hurt, and your baby is hungry. Let me help you." The woman's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded slowly. She seemed to understand that he was trying to help, even if they could not speak the same language. Jake stood up and looked around his living room. He had a mother and baby from somewhere else, possibly another world, and they needed his help. He had no idea what they ate or how to take care of them or what dangers might be following them. But he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to turn them away. Whatever they were, wherever they had come from, they needed help, and Jake Collins was going to give it to them. The baby cried again, and the woman whispered something in her musical language. Jake nodded, even though he did not understand the words. "Don't worry," he said. "We'll figure this out together." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside Jake's small house, something extraordinary was beginning.